Well, hello there, friend. Welcome back to the Construction Leadership Podcast. We are here live at Flower Mound High School State Champions 2014, 2023, Final Four qualifier in 2024.
Yes.
We're here with Mr. Joel Stevens, back with Matt Potter. Last time we were together, we did not do video. We were not in a dugout. We were in my office, crammed in tight. We're on location here to break down the leadership principles and the key scenes in the movie
Moneyball.
When I Look at You. That's your cue.
Yes. Do you want me to talk?
Now, okay. When I point at you, yes. We'll get to that clip between Billy Beane and Peter Brand here shortly. So we are here in the dugout to break down the key scenes from Moneyball. Moneyball is one of my favorite books of all time. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. And two fellow Chicagoans transported here to Flower Mound, representing the White Sox and their Cubbies. And of course, we're going to talk more about my Scott Hatteberg Hattie jersey. But anyway, so as we get started here, we're going to break these down. And then if you are watching this in video, we also have it as a podcast. Video clips will be available on YouTube as well. So Joel, let's start with you. What resonated with you about the movie Moneyball?
I love the movie. I've seen it a bunch of times. Obviously, the philosophy with Moneyball is very intriguing, but I think there were a lot of other storylines. You know, the relationship with his other executives, his scouts, his daughter. Mm-hmm. It was interesting on many different levels, and there was a lot of leadership, I think, lessons to be learned.
Cool. Matt, what stands out to you?
You know, when you look at the movie, how Billy Beane overcame the obstacles of having less money than, say, the New York Yankees, and really got his vision across to all the team and was successful with it. I think there's a lot to learn from that.
Ultimately, it's about value, who we value, what metrics we use to evaluate players. And I think anybody who's played baseball for a minute or knows how it works is you got 9 innings, you got 3 outs. It would seem to be somewhat obvious that anything you do that does not produce one of those 27 outs is good. And yet, from the very beginning, the history of baseball, a walk was not considered an at-bat, right?
Yeah.
So therefore, it wasn't really valued. And I think one of the scouts, Grady, says, you know, are you going to discount 150 years of how scouts have done their job? But I'm like, this is what industries do. This is what companies do. This is what teams do. On a long enough timeline, how everybody says we should do it becomes either obsolete or ineffective, requiring new change. So I just think on a whole series of levels, there's a lot there. There's also some coaching, mentoring, hiring, firing principles that are also baked in there that I want to talk to you about as well.
Bradley, when I think of baseball as it relates to sales and working with a group and working with like teams, I think on the field with a group of people, all working together to get outs collectively. But as the movie shows, when you walk in that batter's box, you're by yourself. It's one-on-one, trying to get a hit, trying to get on base, which Moneyball definitely showcases on-base percentage, right?
Yep.
So a lot of times as sales guys, we're walking in by ourselves to a customer, let's just say trying to get that base hit, that double, triple, home run, whatever we can do.
Yeah, that whole concept, I think I underestimated, played through high school, but now having my son and playing with your sons as well, is you just realize what a great sport baseball is because of all the challenges, patience, and it's a game of failure that you don't really have in football or basketball. It's so fast-paced. Baseball, you strike out, man, as you get higher, it still takes a while, but especially in the younger ages, when you have 30-minute innings, you might have to wait another hour to get back in there. And that whole time, all you're thinking about is what happened in the past that you can't do anything about. So that whole baseball is life thing and coaching young kids. And we might be able to talk a little bit later about having a son who is excelling and is going to play at the next level, Joel. Whole bunch of opportunities. So let's break into right now. Let's play the first clip. So this clip, it's going to have to be slightly edited. There are some aggressive moments in here, but there are certainly some insights. Maybe tee up, Joel. This first clip is when Billy Beane is going in. He's having one of these conversations after Johnny Damon has left, Isringhausen has left, Jason Giambi has left. They call them kind of the Oregon donors to the rich. All their good players are leaving, and he wants to change the culture. Any other details here we should prepare the audience for before we play this clip?
Well, I don't feel like he was changing the culture. He changed his philosophy on filling that void, right? That wasn't a culture thing, I don't think.
Okay. The culture will certainly follow.
Yeah, I just don't think Billy Beane's a culture guy. I don't think he really did anything to
Wow. That's a hot take. He's going to plug
I
in
know.
right before we go to the
it's a
clip.
high take.
It's like
Joel.
earlier you said he had this vision. He didn't have the vision. He he did, but he learned it, right? He learned from Pete, and then he was like, okay, I understand what you're looking at.
Well,
and then he
let's say this,
took
Joel.
everyone
Let's
with
say
him.
this. He knew he had to do something different.
Yeah.
He had a lot less money to work with. He couldn't do it the way the Yankees were doing it at the time, or the Red Sox, who got Johnny Damon. He was going to have to work with a lot less money and create wins somehow.
That's interesting. I don't want to derail this because otherwise we'll do an hour before we get to the first clip.
Yeah.
What's interesting, though, that I think a lot of companies struggle with, especially in the construction industry, we forget that they were extremely successful the year before. The scouts, Steve Schatz, the owner, everyone was like, just roll it back.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, you'll figure it out. We did it before. We won 100 games. We still got the same coach. We're good. I think the hardest thing in the world for organizations and leaders to do is affect change when everybody's rearview mirror, what just happened, was incredibly successful.
It's a very good point.
That's on top. That's so hard. But all right, here we go. Let's play clip number 1.
Guys like that, they got a little hair on their ass.
He looks like a Mandel or a Mays, quite frankly. He's got a baseball body.
Matty, who do you got?
I like Geronimo.
Yes.
Guy's
player.
an athlete,
Good player.
big, fast, talented.
Top of my list. Clean cut, good face.
Yeah, good job.
Five tools guy, good looking ball player.
Can he hit?
Yeah, he's got a beautiful swing, right, Barry?
Ball explodes off his bat.
He throws the club head at the ball, and when he connects, he drives it. It pops off the bat. You can hear it all over the ballpark.
A lot of pop coming off the bat.
And it's effort.
If he's a good hitter, why doesn't he hit good?
He is a good hitter.
Minor leaguer, he'll be ready.
Yeah, so he's going to be a good hitter when we put him up against big league arms.
Could be a great
I
hitter.
don't think so.
This kid needs some at-bats. You give him 400 at-bats, he's going to get better.
He can play.
He's hit everywhere along the line.
It's one of our guys.
Okay, let's move on. Artie, who do you like?
I like Perez. He's got a classic swing. It's real clean stroke.
I don't know. Can't hit the curveball.
Well, there's some work to be done, I'll admit that,
Yeah,
but
there is.
He's noticeable.
Got an ugly girlfriend.
What's that mean?
Ugly girlfriend means no confidence.
Okay.
Oh, no, you guys are full of it. Artie is right. This guy's got an attitude. An attitude is good.
He's got the looks, he's ready to play the part. He just needs to get some playing time.
I'm just saying, his girlfriend is a 6 at best.
Look, if we're trying to replace Giambi, this guy could be it.
I agree.
Damn, Billy, was that a suggestion?
Guys are just talking. Talking la 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 like this is business as usual. It's not.
We're trying to solve the problem here, Billy.
Not like this, you're not. You're not even looking at the problem.
We're very aware of the problem. I mean,
Okay, good. What's the problem?
look, Billy, we all understand what the problem is. We have to
Okay,
replace...
good. What's the problem?
The problem is we have to replace 3 key players in our
No.
lineup.
What's the problem?
Same as it's ever been. We've got to replace these guys with what we have existing.
No. What's the problem, Barry?
We need 38 home runs, 120 RBIs, and 47 doubles to replace.
The problem we're trying to solve is that there are rich teams and there are poor teams. Then there's 50 feet of crap. And then there's us. It's an unfair game. And now we've been gutted, like organ donors for the rich. Boston's taking our kidneys, Yankees taking our heart, and you guys are sitting around talking the same old good body nonsense like we're selling jeans. Like we're looking for Fabio. We got to think differently. We are the last dog at the bowl. You see what happens to the runt of the litter? He dies.
Billy, that's a very touching story and everything, but I think we're all very much aware of what we're facing here. You have a lot of experience and wisdom in this room. Now, you need to have a little bit of faith and let us do the job of replacing Giambi.
Is there another first baseman like Giambi?
No, not really.
No.
And if there was, could we afford him?
Nope.
Then what the are you talking about, man? If we try to play like the Yankees in here, we will lose to the Yankees out there.
Boy, that sounds like fortune cookie wisdom to me, Billy.
No, that's just logic.
Who's Fabio?
He's a shortstop. He's a shortstop from
Now,
Seattle.
this is no time to push the panic button. Billy, our scouts are going to find players. Our player development's going to develop them. We're going to teach them how to play Oakland A baseball. Billy, with all
Guys,
due respect,
we-
we've been doing this for a long time. Why don't you just let us be responsible for replacing Giambi with who we know that can play?
Matt, love that scene for a number of different reasons. What stands out to you?
What stands out to me is, Billy Beane realized there was nothing he could do about losing his top three players, Giambi, Damon, and the pitcher. Those three guys he was going to lose. And he's sitting in a room with the guys that are grizzled veterans out scouting players. And he's challenging them to think of it differently. He's on a short salary cap. He can't compete with New York Yankees or the big teams, the Red Sox or whoever is taking his players. And he's really challenging them to try and think differently. I think in that scene, he didn't really understand where he wanted to go with that.
Right.
But he realized you got to be creative in how you pull together a team and be successful.
Yeah, ultimately, Joel, I think this is about competitive differentiation. If your plan is to just run the same race and do the same thing as everybody else, even though you're going to have 20% of the budget the Yankees have, he inherently knows we can't do that. So how are we thinking differently? And what he's hearing is these guys just talking about the same thing over and over. And again, that's something that I see one of two things happen often in business is number one, companies will invest and have really clear points of differentiation, but their sales team or folks out there will forget. They talk about high quality products and wide selection and good service and honest people working hard. Nope. Nobody is disagreeing with any of that, right? Or they look and they're honest. They look in the mirror and they're like, actually, we kind of have the same trucks. We kind of have the same thing. We kind of do the same things as everybody else, but they're bigger and they're faster and they're stronger. They're like, all right, how do you choose to compete? And that's kind of what stood out to me. It's from a really high level, just about this is a choice about how you get to compete, and it happens every day. But especially when you're successful, there's going to be this inertia that, hey, let's just roll it back. We are successful. We've been doing this a long time. We're confident. Let's keep going.
Yeah, no, we're spending millions and millions of dollars on creative thinking and redesigning business models and everything else. And Billy Beane just did this naturally. And he was asking questions from the first meeting in the movie all the way through to the second. He just found a guy who gave him the answer he wanted to hear. Mm-hmm. And I think that scene is him really taking it to the old scouts and kind of bringing them up to speed a little bit on looking at this problem that they had differently. But again, kudos to him for the fact that they won. I don't know if they won the division, but they were in the playoffs.
Yep.
And he's still working that hard to redefine the way that their path forward, which is pretty cool.
How did you perceive the way he introduced this? Because he came into that meeting knowing what the scouts were going to do, knowing what he was going to say, but he obviously blindsided all of them. And my guess is most of those scouts left that meeting with a, huh? What's just happening there? That was weird. If you were giving him coaching advice as a leader, would you say, actually, no, that worked with this group. You should just do that because it can be advantageous to kind of take the high ground and surprise them? Or would there be a way to potentially prime the pump to say, hey, I want us talking about this? What coaching might you give Billy?
Well, first off, I don't feel he was prepared going in there. He was going to go in there and fire off the cuff. He is a very matter of fact. This is where we're going, very results oriented. This is where we're going. He didn't take his time to really gain buy-in.
That's an HR guy speaking, by the way.
It is an HR guy. Yeah. I would have had a plan for how do I get these guys that have been doing this for 25 years, how do I get them to buy into this idea and look at it differently?
I think that was his whole mindset. And one of the scouts says it in that meeting. He goes, Billy reports to nobody except for the owner.
And God.
He goes, yeah, and God. He could take our suggestions.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, he makes the call. And I think that's why Billy Beane walked in there. And he was just like, boys, you got to change your mindset. Got to figure it out. The old school way of doing it for the Oakland A's at that time on $38 million compared to $150 with the Yankees just wasn't going to work. And he's like, you don't want to be here? Pretty much take a walk.
All right, I want to keep this clean. You desperately wanted to talk about the ugly girlfriend principle. What is the
Lacking
ugly
confidence.
girlfriend principle, and why is it important?
So the ugly girlfriend principle, I'm going to get murdered on this, but so there was a player that they scouted who they said was great.
Yep.
And one scout points out he has an ugly girlfriend. And somebody else points out he lacks confidence because she's at the most of 5 on a scale of 1
It
to
was
10.
a 6. Right.
A 6
Six at best.
Yeah, I threw it a little lower. I don't know what she looks like. Sorry. But
We don't need to go there. We don't need to
we
speculate
don't
on
need
what
to
the
speculate
theoretical
what she
girlfriend
looks like.
Right.
But the lack of confidence is obviously a big part of baseball. I mean, you got to have confidence.
Yeah.
If you're going to step in the batter's box with somebody throwing 90, 95 miles an hour, you better be confident
Right.
and ready to go. So,
Well, and that comes up later in this clip we will not show, but when they're talking about Hattie playing first base, and Wash says, to put it nicely, he lacks confidence. But this idea of confidence, and then actually there's some over talk where I don't know exactly who says it, but it might be like someone calling in on the radio, but they're saying basically, if you have ability and then you have success from that, that then begets confidence. As you think about coaching and mentoring, Joel, is there another way to develop confidence that isn't ability, success, and confidence? Can you get people confident before they ultimately have had success? Or no, is that not possible?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, look at all the kids we saw at a younger age, right? I mean, your mom is like, you're the best, you're the greatest. And, kids are walking out there all, hey.
Yeah.
And we see that in the business world. I had a coaching session today, as a matter of fact, with someone who had a leader who didn't like difficult conversations. So this person was thinking, I need to want to be a president of a company, and meanwhile their new boss who likes to give feedback and constructive feedback was like, yeah, we're not there. And this person was hearing it for the first time. So, I just think, if you have a entourage and people around you that are building you up all the time, you can have confidence without necessarily having the skill.
yeah. I think there's, like Hatteberg, right? Hatteberg probably, obviously from this one of the scenes in the movie, he was not confident at playing first base. He told David Justice asked him, what's your biggest fear? And he's like, a ball hitting my general direction. And Justice laughs at him. He goes, no, seriously. But if you support, like our sales team, if we support them with the tools and the knowledge to go out there, you give them some confidence to go out there to be successful. And we try and put them in spots where they can be successful early and kind of gain that confidence and kind of grow off of that.
Yeah.
So I think that's what they were trying to do with Hatteberg in the movie.
So let's jump to that clip. So the setup here is the A's realize that the metric they are largely going to focus on for the intent of the movie is on base percentage. Do you get on base? And they find this guy, Scott Hatteberg, who had nerve damage in his arm, done with the catchers. Red Sox release him. For all intents and purposes, his career is over. And they realize, I think they say in one of the scouts says he's a career 260 hitter, which isn't terrible, but certainly isn't great.
For a catcher, it's not terrible.
Right.
Yeah.
But his on base percentage. So you add in walks, and all of a sudden, I don't know what it is, but my guess would be 400 something, right? So they want to go target him. Only problem is he's not going to play catcher. He's never played first base. So we'll play this clip now. This is Billy Beane, Brad Pitt, and then his I would say the main coach. He's not the head coach, obviously, but Ron Washington, who was the coach of the Rangers, who was literally an out away from being a World Series champion as a manager. That was brutal. Anyway, this is them going to meet up with and offer a contract to Scott Hatteberg.
Hello?
Scott,
Yes.
it's Billy Beane of the Oakland A's.
Yes.
Can we talk?
Yeah.
You want to let us in?
Pardon me?
We're out front,
What?
on the curb.
Yeah.
Honey?
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Very kind. How's the elbow, Scott?
You know, it's good. It's it's really good. It's great. I can't throw the ball at all.
You thrown your last ball from behind home plate, is what I'd say.
Well,
Good news is, we want you at first. We want you to play first base for the Oakland A's.
okay, well, I've only ever played catcher.
Scott, you're not a catcher anymore. If you were, our call wouldn't have been the only one you got when your contract expired.
Yeah, hey, listen, no, I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
But the thing is,
You don't know how to play first base. Scott?
that's right.
It's not that hard, Scott. Tell him, Wash.
It's incredibly hard.
Hey, anything worth doing is. And we're going to teach you.
Wait a minute here. I mean, what about, you...
Jason's gone, Scott.
Giambi, you want me to take Giambi's spot at first base?
Yeah.
What about the fans?
Yeah, maybe I can teach one of them.
The fans don't... Good one. Fans don't run my ball club.
Honey, what are you doing awake? Sweetheart, can you... It's my daughter. You got kids?
Yeah, daughter. Scott, this is a contract to play ball for the Oakland A's. Copy's been sent over to your agent. Discuss with your wife. Let us know. Thank you. Bye-bye. Oh, and Scott.
Yeah.
Don't tell anyone about the first base thing.
Yes, sir.
Happy holidays.
All right.
So Matt, a little bit of a sales call, deliberately did not call ahead, just jumped in. And was it Christmas? New Year's? What was it?
It was
Felt like
Christmas.
It was Christmas? Okay.
Christmas.
So surprise attack from a sales perspective. What stands out?
From a sales perspective for me is I just went through this situation. I had a customer that works with our competitor. I knew if I called him and set up a meeting or tried to set up a meeting, he'd probably say no. So I just showed up and walked in. And we had a great meeting. I think it was productive. And, we're just trying to close the deal. We're not trying to beat around the bush.
Yeah, they already made up their mind they wanted him. They knew his playing days were over. They also had pretty strong confidence the other 29 teams. None of them would say, you know what? This guy who's only been a catcher his entire life, he could play somewhere else. So there was one match potentially there. What else jumped out to you in that scene, Joel?
Just from a culture standpoint, the coach he brought with him wasn't really standing behind him. You know what I mean? He was like, I'm here, but I'm not in yet.
Well, the good part about it was I think they played off each other well, right? And he said, super easy. He was like, super difficult. End of the day, we're going to work with you.
Yep.
And I think that was a good part about it. You had somebody there being very honest with them as well. So
yeah, that was Billy Beane saying, we're going forward, regardless of, whether or not my supporting cast over here thinks we should do this.
I think this is intriguing. The overriding message here is they are deliberately moving towards on-base percentage, knowing that we are okay not playing defense that well. When you're taking a guy who's never played first base before, and he's been in the major leagues for 8 years, and you're going to convert, you are not going to be at the same level as you were the previous year with real first basemen. It's a challenging position, as they all are. So, but then you play that through, like, all right, this metric is now on base percentage. We're going to make that really clear. Joel, if you think about Art Howe went through, let's call it the entire movie, disagreeing with that. And every time he would say, why aren't you playing Scott Hatteberg? He would say, because he can't play first base. And he says, no, he can get on base. So it's one of those things where how might you coach leaders to over communicate to make sure that if there is a shift in philosophy about what are meaningful results and how we're going to measure that, we got to get on the same page.
Sure.
But I mean, part of the friction, that tension that was important in the movie was between the manager saying, I'm going to assemble this team for you if you use them like this, and the manager saying, I don't want to use guys like this because the guy's terrible at first base.
Yeah. Well, and Billy Beane said, I should have gotten you involved from the very get-go. And right, to your point, this is a fundamental shift in the way they were going to play baseball.
Yeah.
And the guy that's making the scorecard didn't know. Never had a conversation. So that was a major oversight on Billy Beane's side. And I may be switching gears here again, but going back to that scene and you know, I've done a lot of creative thinking in the past, and when you're brainstorming for things, a lot of times you'll come up with something that's you're going to throw away anyway, but you think of something else off of that. And I think the fact that, you know, Billy Beane got to this place where we're going to do on-base percentage, we're going to focus on that, and then to get to the Hatteberg thing and then completely flip that around and come up with that idea to go get him, that's amazing.
What did that tell you, and how does it relate to what you do and think of your coaching? It's obvious Billy Beane had a really high degree of confidence in Ron Washington, primarily.
Yeah.
To coach up someone who's never played a position as important as first base. But I'm like, imagine that though, when you said, we can do that. No, he's not going to be, he can be around average, and we'll take that because his on-base percentage is so above average. But having that confidence that we can just take someone who's been in the big leagues and we can coach him up. We can teach him. That's what he says. We can teach you.
Yeah.
That's such a powerful thing to have when so many organizations don't consider themselves good at training and developing.
Well, I mean, when I look at that and I relate it to sales, when I think about sales, you think about guys that are good at certain things, right? You have your relationship guys, you have your guys that can negotiate deals, your guys that are just good at selling, right? So when I look at it, you're like, okay, I'm going to take this guy. I get that he might not be good at doing the big negotiations. He might not be good at that. But you know what this guy can do? He can go sell every day to all these different customers, and he's going to kill it. Not everybody has to be captain of the baseball team. Mm-hmm. You need the guys that are going to be out there, the workhorses, the guys that are going to do what they have to do. And you have to have managers that are going to put them in that position and realize what they can do. Hatteberg, he's a good on-base guy. Not a great first baseman. But, you know, he had his spot. Yep. And I think that showed when he hit that walk-off home run in the playoff game to win that one game. Mm-hmm. Get him in the playoffs, maybe. I don't remember exactly. But you have to realize what your team is good at and put them in the right positions to be successful and do well for your company.
I love that. I see this often just from the outside where we'll be talking about how to grow the team, what the succession plan is at all levels through the organization. And it's almost a default to where managers in a private setting where obviously these individuals aren't around, we will start talking about what they can't do. He's not good at this. She can't do this. Well, she doesn't build this. And I will just often say, like, what are they great at? Like, everybody's got, you know, if we want to use the analogy, everybody has holes in their swing. There's always some pitch that you can pitch that they can't hit well. Everybody, what are they great at? And how can we put them in that position? But I do think, Joel, have you seen, is this a broad thing or not necessarily? Are there cultures that stay away from it where they're able to really just focus on the strengths versus just constantly looking at individuals and what their biggest weaknesses are?
No, absolutely. And heck, I think the last 2-3 companies I've worked for, we've actually had assessments that we would give people before we hired them in sales specifically. So, you know, we'll hire operations people, but with salespeople, we want an assessment done on them. And there are things we're looking at. You know, your drive is a big one, and that one always sticks out to me. You know, in sales, do I care whether you can do administrative work or can you do expense reports?
We're not going to talk about expense reports.
No, again.
No.
Doesn't matter. And again, as an HR person, I can tell you I appreciate salespeople. And I've often said that I don't necessarily.
That's interesting.
No, I appreciate them. I'm like, hey, they keep me coming to work. But I will say at the same time, I don't always like salespeople. I love you.
Yeah.
But I always said they're sometimes they're hard to deal with. And from an HR perspective, they're hard to deal with. But if they can sell, I don't really care about what, you know, anything else you can't do. Yeah. It doesn't matter.
All right. Well, no, I was just going to say, like, the biggest mistake going back is like the biggest mistake sales teams make is thinking a guy is a great sales guy. And there are guys that are great sales guys. But to say they're a great manager, whole different story. Can they manage people? Probably not. But they're great salespeople. So you got to figure out the strengths and weaknesses of your players overall.
All right. We'll close out there. We got Hattie. We got him in the mix here. This, from a leadership standpoint, is something that I love. So in this clip, we're now going on, the culture change has started, and Billy Beane has he's shifted from really staying away from the players to really confronting them, being direct, being honest. And he has this conversation with David Justice. For those folks who don't know David Justice or where he was at this point in his career, Joel, maybe give a little context. Who's David Justice, and why does Billy approach him in this way?
Yeah, David Justice is a older player. He's been in the league for a long time. I think they said the Yankees were paying like $6 million of his contract to play against them. He's on the decline. But he's a guy that just has, going back to that confidence, he's got the confidence in the dugout. He's definitely got a lot of poise on the field, and he's got influence in that clubhouse. So when he says something, people listen, and Billy is smart enough to know if I can get him on my side or talk through, because he noticed that, wait a minute, we got an issue here? I think is what he said. We have an issue here. He wants to talk through it because he knows he needs that guy to help him get to where he wants to go.
Justice. Had a few thoughts.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Can you teach me some things? Excuse me?
Never seen a GM talk to players like that, man.
You never seen a GM who was a player.
Huh.
We got a problem, David?
Nah, it's okay. I know your routine. It's pattern. It's for effect. But it's for them. All right? That shit ain't for me.
Oh, you're special.
You're paying me $7 million a year, man, so... Yeah. Maybe I am, a little bit.
No, man, I ain't paying you 7. Yankees are paying half your salary. That's what the New York Yankees think of you. They're paying you $3.5 million to play against them.
Where you going with this, Billy?
David, you're 37. How about you and I be honest about what each of us want out of this? I want to milk the last ounce of baseball you got in you, and you want to stay in the show. Let's do that. Now, I'm not paying you for the player you used to be. I'm paying you for the player you are right now. You're smart. You get what we're trying to do here. Make an example for the younger guys. Be a leader. You can do that?
All right. I got you.
So this happened recently, Matt. We have a client who has, well, actually, he recently left, but he was a top sales guy, just, I would say, a craftsman. Mm-hmm. Super methodical, super detailed, extremely successful. And I was coming down to do a workshop, and part of what I do is I say, hey, how do we accentuate some of these bright spots? Who are the guys that are already doing a great job? Can we get them involved? Can we get them to share? So it's not me, it's me kind of sharing some different perspectives, but showing what you guys are doing is already working. Long story short, I get with this guy, and he's like, well, the owner who I'm working with says, you can ask him, but he's not going to do it. I'm like, not going to do what? He's like, he's not going to help. He's like, he will tell you it's not his job to train other people. His job is to sell.
Yeah.
And of course, the overconfident salesperson talking to us, let me talk to him. And sure as hell, he's just like, no. Yeah, I already told Bill. Told Bill the answer is no. Bill told me that he already told you no. It's not my job.
Right.
My job is to go sell. He goes, we're paying you to train. So you train them. And I'm like, oh my God, I love this. I won't go into it. This isn't about me. We had some small victories at the end of the day, but that's kind of what I felt from David Justice, which is like, no, that's for them. That ain't for me. I'm better than this. Is he in the Hall of Fame?
Yes.
I think he is.
I think so too, right? So he was on that path, and this is like the last stop in his career. How might you approach that, whether it's in a sales setting or any other, when you have one leader who's challenging another leader who's not really leading?
I think, from my perspective, I am now the old guy, right?
You're the old grizzled.
Yeah, the
guy.
old grizzled, 25 years in the industry. And I really think I was the guy that was like, that's not my job. But once you start realizing you have to hand certain things down and work with people and see their success, that's very satisfying to me. And I think that's where David Justice, all of a sudden, he was like, okay, I get it. I'm at the end of my career, Hall of Famer, a great baseball player, but you have to put some of that back to the people that are coming up and help grow the organization. Because if you truly want to be a leader, you have to be a little bit selfless. And that's hard for sales guys.
Yeah.
We want to keep it all to ourselves and not give it to anybody.
Well, hell, I coach salespeople. I said, from time management, you have to be selfish.
Yeah.
Because if you're not, everybody's going to come in and take chunks of your time.
Yeah.
And you're just going to be pushed around by your phone and emails and a bunch of other BS.
Yeah. But I'm getting to a point where I'm successful. I've been successful at what I'm doing. But now it's very enjoyable for me to work with guys that are younger and watch them be successful as well and have that experience. And I'll be interested 20 years from now, God willing, to see where they're going and see what they do with their career.
Yeah.
And be able to be a part of that as well.
From that conversation between Billy and David, which kind of goes back and forth a little bit, says basically, I'm too good for this. Then he points out that actually we're not paying nearly as much of your salary as you think that is. And how does that feel to have them pay you a couple $1 million to compete against them? What did you see in there that either would fall into the, hey, you can do this, or this might be on the not to do list because it might have worked here in the movies? It's a dangerous path to go down from one leader challenging another leader to really step up in ways that he hadn't been up to that point, at least in Oakland.
Yeah. No, what I liked about that is I feel like for the first time, Billy was kind of bringing David into kind of what the plan was and what he needed him to do.
Yeah.
And I think just that one-on-one conversation. I mean, if you go up to someone with a 25-year career and you ask them their opinion and how that, share with them how they can help you, and again, I think a lot of times if you think about those people, if you're taking over a company or you're doing some big transition, the 25-year people, they're the ones, a lot of times we're in the back of the room. I've done this 1,000 other times. You got to pull them in. And I feel like that scene, that's what they did.
Well, I think the great thing Billy Beane does, the bad thing at first was he was short-sighted, right? I think he thought David Justice would do that automatically.
Right, just on his own.
And then he had to have that frank conversation with him like, Yankees are paying most of your salary to play against them. That's what they feel about you. And you can help all these guys be better and help us to win.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, that's what it was all about, winning games.
Yeah, he
buying wins.
Even at the beginning, right, when the roster wasn't being played the way he wanted it to be played, they never showed him getting in with the batters and looking at, how are you doing on an 0-2 count, 3-1 count. So that was kind of later on. So the whole movie, I feel like he transitioned from not sure where he was going to go to finding someone who was going to give him the right answers to start to change the culture in the clubhouse, then change the culture with the players. So it was, again, I find that movie fascinating for those reasons.
Well, I also think it's a gut check for all of us at some point where you kind of get in this groove and it's a season of your life and all of a sudden somebody points out like, hey man, you can do so much more. You can be so much more. But even Billy, I think part of the character arc for him is that having been I believe he was the only general manager at the time who'd ever played professional baseball. Hey, these are kids. You are communicating, hey, how to approach the game and how to be professionals in a way that I wasn't able to do, but I can share this information so you can be successful. All of a sudden, right, the second half of that movie, he starts doing that more, giving them confidence, giving them insights. And then you kind of had his high school educated, hard-earned wisdom from failing in baseball. Meanwhile, from Peter Brand's nerdy Yale economics, hey, dude, look at what the analytics are showing on when you swing on this 1-0 count away, low and away.
Yeah.
I think that combination, but I think all of us do where it's easy to fall in this thing where like, I'm just doing it and I'm dealing with all this other stuff. To point out like, are you leading enough? Are you the leader right now today for the people around you that you believe you are in your mind? Because I guarantee David Justice didn't show up and say, you know what I'm not going to do here? I'm not going to lead. I'm just going to wind it down and try to hit 300. No, he's going to be David Justice, but somebody woke him up to that fact.
Yeah. Well, and to that point, when you go back to that first scene we talked about, Billy Beane answers to nobody but the owner and God. And I think he carried that for a while, and then he realized, okay, if I wanted to make this successful, everybody has to buy into my vision and what I want to do here. And then he started putting that out there more and more for all those guys. And that's when they started being successful.
I think if Billy Beane could do all of that over again, he would have gone into his human resources office and asked for them to put together a plan.
God. Nobody goes into human resources and asks for a plan. But I get where you're coming from.
Let's get a couple of hot takes in here. Oakland Port Authority. Do you think they allow anyone to go out there and do aggressive donuts? Throughout the movie, Billy, that's how he blows off steam.
Does donuts in his truck.
Does donuts in his truck at the Port of Oakland. Is that a thing you think?
No.
Is he calling in and saying, heads up, I need a few acres to do this? Or is he sneaking in somehow? How do you think that works? I struggled with that.
Yeah, I don't even really remember this scene.
There's
No, he does. He smashes his radio at one point when they in the first part of the movie and throws it out and stomps on it. And then he goes into Port Authority and does donuts because he's so
multiple scenes. That's how he gets out his stress.
Yeah, that's how he gets out his stress.
Jerks the wheel and speeds
Did
around.
you not watch this movie?
He certainly must have had to get clearance for that. Yeah, I don't know.
I struggled with that. The scene that I know for the movie purposes, it had to be set up like this. They needed to find a way to get Billy Beane and Peter Brand in the same room. But we have collectively, we have a few friends down here who work for the Rangers. And I said, is there any part of that movie that is absolutely what real life is like or something that would never happen? And both of them said that early scene when he goes to meet Mark Shapiro at Cleveland and Brad Pitt comes in and he's sitting down across from him. And there's like 6 scouts, including Peter Brand behind him. And they're like, all right, what about Rincon? What about this? And he's like eating the nuts off the desk. They're like, he would never fly there and have that conversation. But I realize that. Anything else stand out to you in your mind from the movie that you're like, that was probably more for Hollywood purposes or that maybe doesn't hold up too well?
Hollywood purposes. The daughter playing the guitar.
Oh.
In the music store.
I don't even have a daughter.
And ripping into that song.
It made me cry.
I was like, tearjerker.
Yeah.
But that's definitely more Hollywood than actual life.
It was good.
Even though it's a great song. That's fine. Do you believe that he didn't listen to any of the games and just kind of turn them off and turn them on?
I was just surprised he didn't use Game Changer. I mean, you could just
Yeah, I don't know if I could believe. Yeah. I mean, Peter had to call him to tell him what the roster lineup was. Like, that's just weird. I don't understand.
Yeah.
You know.
I kind of
got it. It was bad luck, I guess.
You kind of get it from the perspective of him being an ex-baseball player. And if you ever watch Game Changer, you're like, okay, I'm going to turn it off because it takes a while between pitches. There's commercials, all that stuff, but I don't know.
The other thing I really liked, I kind of thinking of sales, but not really, just in negotiation in general, kind of the creative deal making. When I forget what team it was, but he basically said, I want you to buy soda money for 3 years.
Yeah.
I think helping out a handful of our clients and their sales reps on negotiation deals, I think there's just such a lack of general creativity of little things you can do that somebody else would be like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, let's add that in here. It doesn't mean a whole lot to me. It means a lot to them. It's a concession that I don't mind giving away that has more value to them. Anything come to mind there just in terms of deal making as you kind of think about concessions and negotiation that you either think are principles that are overlooked or things that would help more people be successful?
You know, concessions, we give a ton of, well, I shouldn't say a ton of concessions. I don't want to say that at all as the sales guy, but there's some creative concessions that get put into play here and there, whether it be freight or, technical support, things like that you really don't think about to help them out that you just don't, at the time when you're going through it initially, just do not come to mind. Yeah. So there's always creative ways that you can kind of get to somebody's heart, work a deal.
Joel, the advice they gave, the role playing on how to fire somebody that then happened with Carlos Pena so we could clear off. I believe he was an all-star and rookie of the year that year.
Yeah.
They let him go.
Yeah, that's why they let him go.
Yeah, to create space for Hattie. Ultimately, was that sound advice? Super candid, super direct, sterile, in and out. They've done this before, just shoot him straight. Is that good advice?
I think when you get to that point, yes. If we're talking about terminating someone, that's good advice when you get to that point. But I like Pete's thought, like if I'm going to think this through, I got to figure out if I'm going to terminate someone, other things, their family, other things in their life. You think about those things. But again, that stuff doesn't come as a surprise. There should be many conversations before we get there. But when we do get there, it shouldn't be a surprise anymore.
Yes.
I still want Joel to fire me at some point and see how that goes.
The other thing I'll say that immediately, this is a whole different podcast. I won't go down it. But so that movie, I believe, came out in 2011. So say they shot in 2010. Just seeing the non-Nike screwed up, big letters, clear, classic names, going directly from, obviously, the World Series. The Dodgers won that, what? Was that Wednesday? It was Tuesday. Anyway.
Wednesday.
Okay, a couple days ago, 48 hours ago. And seeing that small lettering in the back of the jersey and just these little changes they made me very nostalgic to like the classic thick etched, sewed on patches and everything.
Even the advertising on the side of the helmets, right?
Oh, Jesus. Yeah. I don't even know who Strauss is, but I'll tell you this. I'm going to look him up and I'm going to be more angry about it because I had to look at their stupid logo.
Well, I didn't watch any baseball this year because I'm a White Sox fan. So I thought maybe that was something new for the playoffs. I don't know.
Worst team ever.
Oh my God.
By the way,
there was an Athletic article that was on Reinsdorf, and there is an anti-analytics bent to that whole thing. That could be, not that anyone cares about the White Sox, including me. But anyway. All right, gentlemen, parting thoughts. If someone says, oh man, I haven't seen Moneyball in 10 years, or I've never seen it. We'll start with you, Matt. We'll go to Joel to wrap it up. Why would you recommend from a leadership standpoint that they make the time to watch it?
It's a classic movie that you should rewatch. For leaders, I think, like I said before, it's about getting everybody to your vision, how to think differently, how to put people on the field and be successful. Maybe you don't have the strongest team, but how to manage that team to be successful and grow. I think it's a great movie for every leader, and they should go watch it for sure.
Joel?
I think great leaders ask a lot of questions, and they listen to people, and they listen. They look at things. They go outside the box, and they ask more questions. I think with this movie, I would pay attention to all the questions that he asked at the beginning. Look at the changes that he made, the mistakes he made with not bringing people along.
Mm-hmm.
But look at the culture shift of that scouting room to the clubhouse. I think what he did was amazing, although it wasn't perfect.
Yeah. Oh, well said. I also just think too, and I think of our construction industry, we've started this sales analytics organization where we partner with a third-party boutique analytics firm. They're all PhD analytics people, and they just ask incredibly simple questions about why we do this, why we do that, and they're helping us visualize data, tell better stories. So it's kind of our clients, it's us in the middle, it's kind of translators and them, and every single month, I find myself saying, this is why it's so important to talk to people you would not normally talk about. And we don't know other people who are really hiring third-party analytics firms. And they're like, we work in healthcare and big pharma, and we don't work with anybody else remotely close to here. So the first guy really to go out and find someone from Yale who didn't have the pedigree, diversity of thinking, and just you get enough smart people around, they're going to ask different questions to your point, and you get better outcomes. So hopefully that, I think, is going to be something that's timeless, and especially when industries are changing and market share is up for grab, which is something kind of we all face. So Matt Potter, Joel Stevens, thank you for making time. Hat tip to two-time state champion coach Danny Wallace for some reason giving us access to this dugout. So I want to thank him for that. Again, if you've got value from this, please share it with your network. We're doing our best to try to find creative ways to share more leadership principles to bring this community closer together so we can build more productively, profitably, and safer. We're going to close out like we always do. You, my friend, are owed nothing. Deliver value first. Make it a great week.